Good morning, everybody. Oh, there's the Cadillac. I always get a Cadillac chicken. I'll get to choose whatever. Good morning, everyone. My name is Mike Masterson. I'm one of the automation specialists here with the Reynolds Company out of the Houston office. And thank you for attending our users group. This is for you guys online. Just to let you know, this is our first live in person one. We don't have a good turnout, but we have the brave souls that are here. I do want our intentions for the rest of the year is to do these all as live sessions, unless things drastically change, and we'll be doing live sessions all the way up to October. So we have some of the topics published that we're going to be covering, but we'll go on from there. And I'll just let you know, we are recording this session. Are you driving the slides? Okay. So here's our upcoming events. Tomorrow, next week, we're having a tech talk. And if you don't know what our tech talk is, that is a shorter 20-30 minute web-based Zoom call. And we cover shorter topics, and usually they're pretty focused. So we keep it real tight. This next week's topic is punch out integration, saving you money. It's basically tying your purchasing system into an EDI system. Myself as an automation specialist, I don't even understand that, but for many of our customers, especially our end users, that does make sense or is very important. So, and our users groups coming up in May, we're going to be doing Plant PAX. Then we're going to be doing our ControlLogix architectures. Then we're going to look at equipment modernization in July. So that covers a big chunk of summer. And if there's any topics you think we should cover, feel free to give us suggestions, and we'll see if we can roll them into our calendar. All right. Also want to make you aware that we have updated our website. A lot of you have found our website because this is where you register for our users group. Just want to make you aware, we're posting more and more content on it, and we're trying to make this a centralized location for you to be able to pull equipment and stuff like that, even look at lead times. But as we do our training events, we'll be posting all of our events to our website. So if you miss an event, feel free to go back and take a look at it. All right. Now, upcoming, Rockwell is going back to a live in-person Rock Live event. We are going to be doing it June 13th through 16th. It will be in Florida. If you guys aren't familiar with this, this is the event that was formerly Tech Ed. And having been to Tech Ed before, I've always found this, I actually enjoyed going to Tech Ed more than Automation Fair. There's a lot of hands-on labs and a lot of good topics. This, I want to say, focus mainly with the engineering crews. So it's not as fluffy and doesn't have a lot of the marketing you might see in an automation fair. So if you're actually more of a hands-on user or looking at trying to develop new projects, this is probably a good place to go. Now, this event will also be co-event with Plex, which is a software company Rockwell owns now. So there are going to be a lot of their events will be handled there. Yeah. So just want to make you know, we will have a better breakdown of the classes and lab sessions eventually, shortly. But at this time, we don't have it, but we will post it to our website when available, and we will make you aware of it. Okay. Today's agenda, we're going to cover lifecycle, some issues with DCOM, Studio 5000, V34. Didn't think I would catch that. Someone's testing me. FactoryTalk Vault and FactoryTalk Logix Echo. I guess we missed did we miss a slide with introduce my counterparts? As part of this presentation, again, my name is Mike Masterson, one of the automation specialists here, but I will be assisted by David Newt, who's one of our business development leads for process. And then I will introduce you to our newest employee, Luis Ramos. Some of you might be familiar with him because we actually got him, he came to us from Rockwell. You are going to be the basic business development lead for, I want to say, all automation software, stuff like that. Basically anything I handle, he's the business development lead. We are glad to have him on staff because he actually gives us a lot of credibility. He actually understands his own product, so that's always a good thing. So, and with hands-on equipment, yes. We get a little laughter out of here because anyone who's had to deal with me and knows I'm not a hands-on guy. Luis makes up for that. And with that, we'll go into the lifecycle update. I'm going to handle this because I'm good at breaking bad news. So this is the slide you're seeing now is Rockwell's general product lifecycle. You guys might have never seen this, but Rockwell's always classify their hardware in active, mature, end of life, and discontinued product range. Now, if you go to the Rockwell website and just search lifecycle and Rockwell, it will actually take you to a part of the website where you can actually put in a part number and it will tell you the status of that product, where it sits on this lifecycle spectrum. I want to make you aware of it because I'm going to tell you some stuff that doesn't really make sense or coincide exactly with this slide, but ultimately I'm here to break some bad news to some people. Next slide. This is going to make a lot of people cry, but the slicks are, I will flat out say they are gone at the end of this year. Rockwell will not be making them. That might not be officially what Rockwell is saying, but inherently they are gone. So it's time to migrate the Slick platform. As you see, a lot of the stuff in the column, if you're looking on the right, those are the bread and butter cards. Those are going away. And once we lose those, it's definitely time to migrate the system. Rockwell will support the system though. We'll still be able to get refurbished products. I'm sure everyone on this call, no one would ever sell a Slick new. Well, maybe there's a couple guys who might, but we don't want you to do that. So our message now, stop selling new Slicks and making your customers aware that they are going away. There is a letter that addresses us on Rockwell letterhead. Feel to reach out to any of the automation specialists and we'll get that to you to help promote that conversation. Next slide. Some of the IO is going away too. Luckily, the IO you see listed here is nothing you see a lot. It's a lot of the oddball voltages for point and flex IO. Those will be going away in January or at the end of the year. But for the most part, point IO and flex IO are truly viable. We're all using 24, as most of us are just using standard 24 volt or 120 volt. Those cards are not effective. But as you know, some of the oddball cards have been removed. And you notice on the comms adapters, we're not supporting DeviceNet anymore. A lot of you will say, well, we haven't supported DeviceNet in a long time anyway. And that's a good answer because everyone who knows anything about DeviceNet has passed away right now. And so where we're going with this is our focus on IO, and this isn't a surprise to everyone, is all going to be Ethernet-based IO. So, and if you were to search any of these part numbers here, you will see they're all kind of strange voltages on it. So none of the bread and butter cards are going away. Now, this is the one that troubles me the most. The Micrologix 1400 is going away. Rockwell currently has it listed as an active mature product, which means you need to start migrating now. But effectively, if you were to order one today, you're not getting it for the end of the year. I just want to make that statement. there. We've had a lot of these on order for stock. We don't expect to get any. We are working with some of our larger OEMs to get a last time buy. But our path for this is to migrate to the Micro 800 controller. For those of you who have experimented with Micro 800 or haven't in a long time, the software is much improved from the CCW software it uses is much improved. It does have a simulator built into it also, which it didn't have upon initial release. And if you do have an application for a microcontroller and maybe you want to get reintroduced to the Micro 800, please reach out to your Rockwell automation specialist and we will help you, anything we can do to help you migrate a project. If you're a large OEM, we will actually help you with the code conversion on it too. So there is a tool to take your Logix 500 and migrate it to CCW. So that is in place. But and we have gotten Rockwell to help us migrate some OEM projects on this. So there are tools available for making this migration. This is a sad time because of all the products, I've never had an issue with a Micrologix product. They've always been bulletproof, and it's sort of sad to see them going away. But what is pushing this, while even on the slicks and this card, is because there are supply side issues. Anybody who asks me for a lead time knows that such a thing. We do have supply issues. It doesn't make any sense to try to keep an active, mature product alive for any length of time. It's you're better off putting your resources into the newer product. So that is, even though we wanted to keep some of this alive through 2025, we just don't have the option to do that anymore. And also for some of our process guys or people have done a lot of offshore, the 1756 time module, which was the old high problem time module for doing a timestamp, is going away. So our option for that now is using an Aperion standalone gateway, the A-TSM. So that is what we're going to be using as a replacement for the time module.
Uses a GPS connection. So wherever, that's why you see it a lot in offshore. So wherever you can get a GPS signal, which would typically be outside unobstructed view, then you could get a proper timestamp for your system. And so that came with a kit. It came with an antenna and a cable and all that. That's going to now be an out of chassis solution going forward. So that module itself is going away, but all the antennas and all that technology is still around.
Yeah, well, Aperion has that technology for their standalone gateway.
Right.
To address this.
Yeah.
Now that's actually on the slide. I'm getting ready to hand this off, but I do want to let you know, Andrew Holgren, our services manager, is here. And I just wanted him to pinpoint some upcoming events we're having. I think I sent it to you, maybe you didn't.
Not a problem. So we can add it at the very end. We'll add it. But so my name's Andrew Holker. I'm the service specialist. So I'm kind of in charge of any contracts related Rockwell training classes, getting them scheduled. So if you guys have classes that you see on our schedule that aren't there, you're looking to have, you guys can talk to me. Here are some of the classes he was able to put up that we have coming up at our Houston and Pasadena branches in the next month or two. If you guys are interested in getting enrolled, please let me know and I will get you guys pricing and an official quote and everything.
Okay. And one thing I'll say about that, if you forget Andrew's name after this, just reach out to any of your specialists or your account managers and we'll get back to Andrew and help you get this set up. And with that, we're going to have a little discussion on DCOM.
Right. Yeah, thanks.
So
Andrew.
I'm going to hand it off over to David.
And thanks, Mike. So some more good news. I have to follow up Mike's. So Microsoft DCOM update. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So those of you, I'm sure you probably heard of DCOM, probably know what DCOM is. I'm sure everyone in this building in this room and online has used DCOM. DCOM is a Microsoft technology that's used to communicate data between computers or between applications on a computer. Used it's extensively in OT software, so Rockwell software, et cetera. Well, DCOM's been around for 20 years or so, but recently Microsoft had discovered some security issues with DCOM and has patched those issues. So that's the good news. And so the challenging news is those patches for the Microsoft DCOM updates are affecting Rockwell software. So so just a high level, this issue, it affects Rockwell, but it probably affects a lot of software in the OT space. DCOM was a kind of a de facto standard for quite a bit of software in control systems. And so the good news is Microsoft is fixing a defect, what they're calling a hardening defect. But the bad news is this fixing of the defect is going to require some action from users. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. So go ahead and go to the next slide.
Just, you guys have probably known.
Oh, okay, you're mic'd. Okay, good.
So most of the time, we never talked about DCOM on the Rockwell side because it was part of the Microsoft set, but we would have conversations around it anytime we talk about FactoryTalk Asset Center, because a lot of the time customers wanted to put Asset Center on different pieces of firewall. So from one connection to another, DMZ communication, those type, and at that level is when we started having the DCOM conversations from a Rockwell side of it, because we had to deal with the architecture. Now, with the change that Microsoft is doing as how it handles DCOM, even inside of its own network, that's why we now have to address it, because there's a difference in how DCOM is handled from one computer to another, not even worrying about the firewall side of it. So with that, there was always a handshake mechanism that happened on the Rockwell side. So FactoryTalk Studio, FactoryTalk View, FactoryTalk Asset Center, Studio 5000, all of them had an inherent handshake that happened between software packages. So this is now something that we internally have to worry about as far as how we're architecting a system, even if it's not a very large system. But thankfully, what David's going to cover is patches will be covered within the Rockwell environment to kind of handle all of it.
Right.
So
yeah, thanks, Luis. And so continuing on, so how are Rockwell products affected? So there are a number of Rockwell products that are directly affected, meaning that DCOM is embedded in the software and it directly affects its operation. So that example would be FactoryTalk Services, RSLinx Classic. So anybody use RSLinx Classic? Yeah, everybody that's ever touched a Rockwell PLC. So those softwares are directly affected. And then you have another category of indirectly affected software. So that would be Studio 5000, RSLogix 500, et cetera, where you're connecting to that PLC or you're connecting to an HMI system with RSLinx or with FactoryTalk Links. So Studio 5000 isn't directly affected, but the communications path is to what you're communicating with. And then there are a few unaffected products. So one example of that would be like a HMI single station, that the HMI is just communicating from the single station out to a PLC or something like that. That would not be affected. But a ViewSE distributed system would directly be affected because the ViewSE server and the ViewSE client are using DCOM for those communications. So again, we've got this affects a broad base of applications. So we need to do something about it. So go ahead and go to the next slide. So this is a list of affected Rockwell products. So on the left, we have directly affected. So you see there a lot of familiar names. So Links Gateway, Links Classic, ViewSE on the distributed architecture, even things like Vantage Point, Thin Manager, the KEP server if you're using OPC, DA, that is also affected. And then we have a number of indirectly affected on the right-hand side that are in blue and black, excuse me. Those are indirectly affected, like Studio 5000, even Control Flash Plus. If you're doing firmware updates, you're doing that over Lynx Classic typically, so that's going to be indirectly affected. So you get the idea. This is a significant event that we have to prepare for, and we have to be ready for.
That product notice that was there, that available?
Yeah, so Rockwell, probably about 6 or 8 weeks ago, Rockwell made the first announcements, and things have changed. This has been a moving target, somewhat speak for data. Things are kind of settled a little bit better today than it was 6 to 8 weeks ago, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But yeah, Rockwell has documented this. Rockwell has sent a lot of notices out directly to users. You had to be signed up for those notices, but we're trying to get the word out right now. Is the short
You'll
answer.
see is on the Rockwell side. So all of the accounts that you guys have, you should be able to do like a single sign-on for Rockwell when it comes to the knowledge base. On the knowledge base, you can set up, there's a security index kind of table of contents. You can go into help, or I think one of the settings, and actually do alerts. So you can get email alerts anytime there's any updates when it comes to security vulnerabilities or anything that we have updated. Security index will have a table of contents of everything that's here. But then on top of that, if you go to the PCDC, basically our Rockwell's download site, there is a little note on there regarding the DCOM that you can click on directly there.
And any general login to knowledge base, that banner is also pushed out front. So that document is easy to find.
Right.
Correct.
Yeah.
Rockwell is advertising hard and heavy.
Yeah.
So one thing to note is because knowledge base does require login, it does not require any contract for most of the general information.
Mhm.
So there is Tech Connect contracts and things of that nature, but for that level of information, it's all public information. You just have to create an account.
Mhm, mhm. Okay, any more other questions? Okay, so kind of moving on, what does the effect look like? So directly affected software, for example, FactoryTalk services, which includes links, FactoryTalk links. So you'd have issues editing the directory, the FactoryTalk directory. Indirectly affected, you'd have some authorization failures. FactoryTalk live data, which is communications with ViewSE, historian, et cetera. Like we said, the client and the server would not be able to communicate with ViewSE network distributed. So that's a direct effect. And also with OPC DA has the same effect with direct and indirectly affected issues. Go ahead, Brian. So let's talk about some dates here, and this is what's changed a little bit. So this is an issue with Windows 10. And so what we're talking about primarily is Windows 10 operating systems. Those of you that are running Windows 10, which is most of us, already have this update in your installed but not active in your PC. So in June of 2021, Microsoft came out with this update. So it comes in the Microsoft updates. It came in as an update, but it was turned off. So this DCOM hardening is not active unless you've gone in to your registry or in depth and turned it on yourself. So that's why we haven't seen this issue yet pop up. Typically, is because no one's really turned it on. Now, at one time, this was going to be turned on in March. I think there was enough pushback from OEM partners of Microsoft. Microsoft decided to delay that process for a later time. So we have about 4 or 5 months. So in June of 2022, the Microsoft update that will be released at that time will turn on the DCOM security update. So if you go in and do your Microsoft update, your Windows 10 update, and turn it on, and that will turn on this update. So you will see the effect of this issue on all the software we talked about directly or indirectly on June of 2022. So that's what we want to get ahead of. And so, but in June, you can turn it off. So you can go into Microsoft and you can turn it off. So then you wouldn't have that problem. You wouldn't have that issue. Fast forward to March of 2023, Microsoft is going to turn that feature on and you won't be able to turn it off. So you won't be able to bypass the DCOM hardening update in March of 2023. Yes, yeah, this is a lot. I know this is a lot of information, but yeah, and dates have changed because I think Microsoft received a lot of pushback in industry, so they pushed some of these dates out. You can see on the slide the dates that were crossed out; those are the original dates. The dates that are not crossed out are the current dates that Microsoft is pushing, is making these changes.
When you guys are looking at how you support your customers the same way we do, we basically now have about a year's before the actual update from Microsoft comes in that we need to make sure that we're on top of it when it comes to patching. But that also means that one, your customer has to be updated from a Microsoft point of view first, and then also patched on the Rockwell side of it.
Yeah.
So just make sure there's a plan in place where you're either actively doing quarterly or yearly updates, or get us into the conversation so that we can make sure that they understand where the needs are so they can call you or call us.
Yeah. And typically, you know, with users, with end users, typically their IT department doesn't make these Microsoft updates immediately available, but there might be chances that that does happen. So that's why we want to make sure we look at these dates and to manage these potential issues that come up. So any questions on the Microsoft dates and what this looks like?
And I'm sure people still know that one customer that's running that Windows NT box that they haven't updated in like 20 years. We probably want to have a conversation with them too.
Yeah, yeah.
How does this affect Windows Vista?
The computer just explodes.
Anyway, go. Yeah. Symptoms.
It's not working. It just cracked the communication.
No, like we said, so it affects different software different ways, but like, well, I'll take, for example, a View SE distributed system. You have a View server and you have, say, 10 clients running a facility. If Microsoft updates were applied to the server and the client of that system, then the client server communications of View SE would cease to function. So no, this is just DCOM, just DCOM. I don't think ODBC is affected.
Yeah, communication between databases and communication to controllers is not affected. What you will see is, assuming the patch goes in place and the Rockwell patch doesn't go in, at the end of it, what ends up happening is it's almost like a denial of service with a naming convention between the software packages. Because like I mentioned at the beginning, there's a handshake that happens. It now becomes an untrusted partner, and it doesn't know whether or not that's actually who I'm supposed to be talking to.
Mhm.
The patch essentially will take care of that, where it's a different class of administrator rights that becomes addressed when it comes to all of the services platform underneath the hood.
And like it says on the slide, it's important to note that all the computers in the system, if they get this Microsoft update, they all have to be patched in order for it to work. So if a server doesn't get patched and all the clients are patched, the system still probably won't work.
Yeah, for
everything
all of
needs to be
this to take
patched.
into effect, it would have to be patched at the Microsoft level. So again, existing systems that are not getting updated or patched, even though that is a big cybersecurity hole, will not get affected by this. So,
Yeah.
but again, you need to have a plan in place, especially with everything that we're going through right now from a cyber point.
Yeah.
I think there's a question online.
Yeah, there's two questions online. This affect Windows 11 and Server 2019.
Well, Windows 11 isn't officially supported yet on Rockwell software products, so I can't
Yeah.
answer that. Windows 11.
So when we're looking at it, this is from Microsoft across the board. So it will go in place for Windows 11 and 2016. To what level or extent on the Rockwell side, I don't, it'd be closer to say 2019 server and Windows 11, both of which will be added to Rockwell's portfolio coming soon. But as of right now, we're looking at 2016 and Windows 10 for what affects us the most on the OT side of it. But I would hazard to say, yes, it's going to be part of all throughout.
Yeah, and I think Windows 2019 is supported on Rockwell software
Yes.
too. So that would affect, yeah.
It's not 2020.
Right. Yeah, 2019 and Windows
There's one
10.
more question.
Okay.
Is there a plan to create an information package we can send to end users? Since most end users are going to be oblivious to such matters, they just want the software to work. Is there a program that Rockwell has to create more plain English rather than this?
So there are several announcements in the knowledge base. Some of them there's some detailed announcements, and then there's some high level announcements. So I would suggest the knowledge base articles are linked on this presentation. So I would suggest going to those knowledge base articles, and then there'll be several downloads on those knowledge base articles to help you with that.
And I have joked for years that Rockwell will bury you in documentation. This part is true as well. The amount of information that they've released with this is extensive. We will help to kind of solidify some of the easier messaging. There are a few webinars and a few like infograph style updates that we can help put together and send out so that we can all have the same conversation with the customers.
Yeah. Okay. Get next slide. Okay, so this is the important slide. So what has Rockwell done is to mitigate these issues? So Rockwell has come out with patches for all the affected products. And so this slide here lists all those different affected products. And as you can see, almost all of the patches are available now. And there's, if you look at the individual patches links column, there's a download link on this presentation for this. I think this takes you to the knowledge base article, and then the downloads are actually done on the download center that Rockwell has published. So these are all individual patches. In May of 2022, when Rockwell releases its roll-up, which is conclusive of all the software products that Rockwell releases monthly updates, all these DCOM hardening patches will be in the May 2022 roll-up. So depending on your timing, or if you have just, if for example, if you just need to update maybe RS links or links gateway or something, go ahead and download the individual links. If you have scheduled time in May, then just you can download the roll-up, and it'll be in the roll-up May going forward. There's just there's a few that haven't been released yet, like Thin Manager, Production Center, and a couple of others. But by and large, I would say the far majority of patches have been released out there and are available to download today. So I would highly suggest going online and getting that done. And this presentation we make available. So you'll be able to use this download link, or you can just go to the Rockwell PCDC or the knowledge base and look this up.
Yeah, and the benefit of the roll-up is you don't have to specify what software package it is. You just load it on the computer and hit run, and it'll find everything that's there.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Some do, because so this Microsoft update requires a computer restart, right? So this is one of those big semi-annual updates that Microsoft puts out there. So that's why if in a control room that's a controlled environment that doesn't get patches, you're probably okay for a period of time until you do that roll up, until you do that IT requires you, because of security issues, to do some sort of update. So this is typically in a running, especially in an HMI system, this would typically be a scheduled sort of downtime event anyway to do the Microsoft updates. So what we ask is if your IT group requires you to do a Microsoft update, maybe a month or two after the Microsoft updates come out, be sure you also update the Rockwell software using these patches. Otherwise, you'll have issues. So this final slide here has all the links to all the different knowledge base articles associated with the with the DCOM hardening patch. So please take a look at these, and use these links will take you to all the necessary information.
Yeah, there is now a table of contents knowledge base article that has links to any new existing and new knowledge base article regarding DCOM. So in the knowledge base, just search for DCOM TOC for table of contents, and you should find it.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Any questions about DCOM? I think this is our last DCOM slide. No, okay. Cool. Okay, I'm going to pass it to Luis. Luis is going to talk about the Logix Designer version 34.
Yep, so we can go to the next slide. So 34 is now available on our download site. So you can go and kind of peruse, update. We'll kind of cover a little bit on what came out with version 33. Obviously, for those that are here, we haven't seen you guys in 2 years, so we don't know what you've heard. So Studio 5000 Logix Designer, you guys have kind of all played around with this. We still have customers that are running version 20 or below. As Mike mentioned, we're trying to do away with customers that are running Slicks, Micrologix. So typically Studio 5000 is going to be Compact Logix, ControlLogix. Most of the update is going to be around the Compact Logix, the 5380, and also the ControlLogix, the L8 style, so the 5580. You are still able to support the L7, so the 5570s. You can still support the L1, L2, L3 style Compact Logix, so the 1769 family. So if we go to the next slide. So just your standard kind of integrated piece of it. For anyone looking at design of Studio 5000, we are still implementing the integrated architect builder. So we still heavily require or ask you to build systems in that so that we can see kind of the bill of material, the architecture. Application code manager is getting updated. We have programs for FactoryTalk Updater, the Control Flash Plus that still is in existence, getting updates. But with the view that we're doing here in the Logix Designer, go to the next slide. One of the things that we're going to do is, and we won't have information much on this one, but we will be introducing a new I/O platform starting closer to the end of the year. So come automation timeframe, we will introduce more of the Flex HA that will be tied in. So that version 34 enables this. So this will be one thing that we have. Some of the things that we will update here is SIP security. So from a cybersecurity point of view, when we start talking about FactoryTalk security, how we handle communication and I/O encryption from controller to controller. The SIP security now has an update as of version 34. So we'll kind of talk about that. Some of the updates as far as how we download to the controller, that is one heavy update that we will see. And some productivity enhancements. This is going to be more around different data types. The big piece here is going to be the automatic diagnostics support that's going to be updated as of 34. So next slide. Okay, so one big update that we're going to see here is for anybody, especially in the process space, obviously everybody that's probably on the call and everybody that's here. In process, as of version 33, we did enable the ability of being able to do redundancy with the 5580 controllers. We were limited at that point with the EN2T, or EN2TR in terms of the redundancy. So we still needed to have that module on top. All of the remote IO chassis could be the EN4TR. And that adapter was also allowed us to do a redundant adapter. So we can have two side by side, and we can do at that point either DLR, we can now do PRP at that level as well. With version 34, we will have full redundancy on the L8, the 5580 platform using the EN4TRs. So that changes the architecture. IAB has now been updated, so that gives you the ability of doing the full architecture using the design style on that. Yes. Yeah, no, that's fine. Yeah, the change to that is just recent as of 34. So IAB would have been updated in one of the latest Tuesday updates, probably over the last 2 weeks.
So you lay out your networking IAB?
Yes. Yeah, so if you are looking at doing a move, in most cases, kind of to Mike's point, where we're trying to migrate or move towards the newer technology wherever possible, the EN4TR is going to have more tie-in. So that is going to be kind of our modernization effort. So if you have anything that's running an EN2TP, EN2TR, or just the 2T, we will try to move towards a 4TR if at all possible. Just looking at it, depending on what type of architecture that we need to. Question?
What about the onboard Ethernet?
The onboard Ethernet for redundancy is still turned off. So if we're looking at even in 34 or 33, when we start looking at the 5580s, that front port Ethernet adapter is turned off. We can only use it in simplex mode, and we are using it more than anything else just for IO communication. It should not be used for HMI communication or historian traffic. We're really looking at it from a peer-to-peer IO network. But when we, like I said, in redundancy, we won't use that front port. We will use the EN4TR or an EN2TR if needed. The EN4TR does support, like I said, DLR or PRP at that level. If we're talking about Plant PX, all of that is documented as of right now. We're still looking at version 33 for all of the documentation. Any idea updates? 34 with Plant PX. So in the future, there will be an update. Usually Rockwell is about, yeah. So Plant PX 5.1 will probably be the update when we start seeing new documentation for version 34. For everybody on the call, I was basically pointing at our Rockwell guru, Justin Ryan, while he takes a bite and he can't answer. So again, when we're looking at process, we do have our newer controllers, so the 5580. We did introduce as of version 33 the process controllers. So there's a variant in both ControlLogix and ControlLogix. It's a process controller that has the process instructions built in. So a lot of the times whenever we were looking at a Plant PX 5.0 system, we were looking at instruction sets that were built into the firmware. If we're moving from a 33 to a 34, there's no changes that need to be made manually. Essentially, the upgrade on firmware will update the instruction set at that level. For anybody that's looking at doing process, you still can support that with the L7s or the L8s, but there's no instruction sets built into those. There's the process library that you have to import, export that are still available on the website. We still support the 1715 family, the redundant IO. Flex 5000 will be our main process IO that we have to date. We are getting an update for analog safety modules. So that's that red family that you see there. The digital family is already out. And then at the picture at the bottom is that Flex HA 5000 that I mentioned. We will introduce that a little bit later on once we get closer to release. But 34, like I said, will be kind of the first starting point. So we'll start seeing more documentation as we go forward. And
They're asking if the task monitor tool is not built into the control. They're asking if we can route.
oh, because we use the block, right?
Punch the IP address of the controller, and it's on the web page. It shows you your task monitor.
I got you.
I think the question is routed through
Okay, if the question online is the built-in web page portion of it, we will find out regarding being able to pull through the N4TR or the 2TR. For diagnostics that are built in, the library objects, both the import, export, or the built-in, have the feature set of being able to put that into the HMI or alarming. But for the web page side of it, we'll find out, because that part I'm not sure of. Okay, we can go to the next. Oh, go ahead. Oh. This one's a big one. So for anybody that's having to deal with customers right now with cybersecurity discussions, whether we're looking at TSA, whether we're looking at all the different vulnerability discussions, how we handle architecture. In most cases, we're talking to customers around FactoryTalk security. How do we handle segregation on the network, tying in from the OT to the IT side of it, where the firewall should be. One of the big additions that Rockwell added in is the ability of being able to do SIP security. So at that level, we're talking about authentication, integrity, and confidentiality between not only the workstations to the controllers, but also controller to controller. This is to prevent unauthorized access. So think of your man in middle conversation, being able to encrypt traffic from one system to another, or to define who has access and at what level. So with SIP security, we would enable what was called the FactoryTalk Policy Manager. Essentially, it was built into the services platform. It would allow you in a way to kind of create different zones. So you would set up policies in place on what controllers could implement from what zone to what zone, what computers from what zone to what zone. And you can also put in what level of security we wanted to do there. In terms of how that would handle in security, very similar idea to how we would set up firewalls in between. This would actually allow direct connections between your workstations. So FactoryTalk View, FactoryTalk Links communication, to have FactoryTalk Asset Center, things of that nature, all the way down to the controller side of it. So that would be a secure connection in between. As of version 33, that was enabled for a simplex controller using the 5580. So we were talking about the newer controllers there, the 5380, the 5580. With version 34, we now add security for SIP security on redundant controllers in the 5580 family. So again, process happy customers are now being able to do full redundant systems. We also added this for compact Logix, so the 5380. For any type of architectures that we're looking at that don't fall in line with those kind of bullets that we have in the top end, we also have the ability of Rockwell released recently a SIP security proxy. Looks like a little eTap that you can do in line with a, let's say, a compact Logix that doesn't fall in the 5380. So we talked about like the L1, L2, L3 family. If you have one of those controllers that you want to have there and have a secure connection in between, we would put a little SIP security proxy in its place in between. So we do have architectures like that. Again, if you guys are looking at it, have conversations or questions on it, just let us know. We can kind of point you in the right direction. We are having a lot of conversation with customers that need to see about how do they secure their controllers, how do they segregate their networks, or just dealing with a lot of the TSA mandates that are coming down for critical infrastructure. This is one of the pieces of conversation that we will always have with them. Yes. Yeah, realistically, with anything that you're looking at Rockwell and the OT side of it, all the security features are optional. You have to turn everything on. In most cases, what we're seeing here with SIP security, it will be only a 33 and above option. You have the ability of turning on FactoryTalk security from version 20 and above. So there are certain feature sets that got updated and changed in version 28, where it allows you to do temporary guest users. But when you start looking at SIP security, because it's more of a hardware-based solution, at that level, we're now at 33 and above. And when you see specifically around like SIP security or even the Plant PX security side of it, Rockwell ties in with IEC 62443. This is part, but not the entire thing. So yeah, you always have the ability of being able to turn things on and off. And it's like anything else, security works. So just make sure that you plan ahead when it comes to that, because once it's on, it is on. There is no backdoor.
It's also part of this is what addresses the CISA announcement on like critical.
Mhm.
So the only two paths to get around it is put a color on mode or do this.
Right.
So
Yes.
only this one. Yeah, so security documentation is made available for people that are developing their own DCOM drivers.
Yes. Yeah. So for anyone that's seen, when we talk about Ethernet IP as a communication standard, a common industrial protocol, all of that's owned by ODVA, so ODVA. All of the information that's responsible for SIP security is also built into that. So you can go to the Rockwell website or the ODVA website or even the knowledge base and pull down information when it comes to SIP security and what the protocol does, all the standards, everything that it was built to. And then on top of that, from a networking and cybersecurity side of it, Rockwell has the CPWE, so that Converged Plant-Wide Ethernet Design Guide, all of the 200 plus documents that we now have. If you ever need a nap, read those. They're great for it. But they have updated documentation and PowerPoints and webinars when it comes to that, specifically with SIP security. So again, if you're looking at implementing, if the customer is kind of right there and they're looking at, to Justin's point, ways of being able to define their standards when it comes to TSA, CISA, anyone that's kind of asking them to go a little step further on their cybersecurity journey, this is typically one of the conversation pieces that we might have. So we can kind of do a pros and cons on, okay, do you just put the key switch and run and be happy with it? Or do we go the extra step and seeing something like SIP security? So not an easy conversation to have, but definitely something that needs to happen. So on this one, just quick update. A lot of the times we still have customers that are running RS Links Classic. We are actively trying to move them away from RS Links Classic. It is going the way of the dodo. So while it can still be supported, any download that you have for any of the FactoryTalk software packages will automatically default to FactoryTalk Links. So FactoryTalk Links now has pretty much every single update that RS Links Classic used to, as far as how we handle shortcuts and tie-ins and browsers. So if at all possible, especially because what we just talked about with SIP security, it will be enabled as part of FactoryTalk Links. So again, just part of the package for any customers that are already actively on 31, 32, 33, FactoryTalk Links is probably already there. Studio 5000 has defaulted to FactoryTalk Links over the last couple of years now anyway. So again, that's the main way that we have communication to the controllers or to from the controller to the HMI. One big update that we will see as of 34 is the kind of faster ability of being able to do upload downloads. So for anybody that specifically has tried to do any type of update to an 5580 LA controller, you know it can take more than a few seconds, a couple minutes, a couple hours. So what you're seeing here is as of 34 using FactoryTalk Links, there is now an updated path of being able to do this. So they have seen updates of, I think they did a study for something that they did as of version 32 and 33 to what they're doing now. And it is a fast improvement. So they're looking at upload download times of about 5 minutes on average, if not less, for a L8 controller. So the study was back around the 20 to 30 minute mark when they initially did it. Again, SIP security is a big one that we're seeing there. FactoryTalk Links has been updated to 6.3. We will see 6.4 soon. Realistically, anytime you're seeing that, all of the individual packages are always available via download on the website. When you get the actual install for 34, it will be part of the system. So I'll have everything that you need for the download, and then you can go in and do any updates for it. Next slide. These is a little bit more for my designers. So if anybody goes in, as of version 32, we added 64-bit basically data types. This is going a step further. So again, 64-bit when we start talking about time. So when we're looking at relative time, absolute time, some of the instruction sets, some of this is going to be specific to motion. Some of it will just be computational when we start looking at that. So there's documentation that has been out on this. So if you get the version 34 user manual, essentially this will go through a lot of the different pieces of it. So we're now looking at time in microseconds and nanoseconds. Next slide. This is going to be a little bit more for online activity. So if you have multiple folks that are on a controller at the same time, you can now do import export of a CSV file for all of the documentation side of it or the descriptions. So if you do an online import of the instructions or the descriptions, all of that will be updated while it's online and everybody that's connected to it will see the update. So these are just a couple of tools that they've added to the 34 side of the family just to be able to kind of make changes and bulk edits on a running system. Next slide. Automatic diagnostics. So this is a bigger update that I mentioned. So they introduced this as of version 33. This is directly tied to the newer controllers. So 5580 on the ControlLogix side of it, 5380 for the compact. What we're seeing here as of version 33, they introduced the automatic diagnostics. What this ties into is the FactoryTalk alarm and events. So from an HMI side of it, there is no actual code that need to be added to be able to have the alarm configurations as far as like what you're seeing. Think of it more of your traditional broken wire communication to the actual equipment. It also tied into the IO tree. So it wasn't just tied into the controller, but it was also telling you if an IO went on offline or any of the status updates. Realistically, all you had to do is a little checkbox. So again, no added code that needed to be added. For all of you that might have done this in the past, it's probably like a get system variable where you're going in and checking the IO status. It wasn't additional code, it was built into the system. As of 34, they have added the 5069 IO. So the adapter and the IO that's part of the system, static switches, and also the PowerFlex drive. Anything that's added through Ethernet IP. So this is going to be tied in directly into the FactoryTalk View Studio, the SE side of it. So from an HMI perspective, whether we're looking at single station or distributed systems to the server client, all of this gets updated at the same time. These are all pushes from the controller to the HMI. And then for anybody that may potentially be running the PanelView 5000, that also subscribes to the FactoryTalk alarm and events, so you can tie into it. Because of the fact that it's part of FactoryTalk alarm and events, you also can tie it into the historical reference side of it. So FactoryTalk View has an SQL database that you can attribute for all of the historical alarms. That would be part of it. So if you wanted to, you can see a summary of everything that's been happening at the controller side of it. This is something that you see the little green box. It's not out yet, but they are working on it. So as of version 34, there will be a Logix Designer SDK. So this will allow, if you think about it for ease of use, like a C++ type interaction system, to be able to do a tie-in between the Studio 5000 controller side of it to scripting languages. So if we go to the next slide, it will show some of the things that we'll be allowed to do on this. Yeah. So you can do automated tests, and you can also do an auto deploy to multiple controllers. So the Logix SDK will be part of the professional package of Studio 5000, but it will also be a separate add-on. So you'll be able to kind of download the tool. As part of this, we will not be using this for programming Logix. Obviously, we'd still use Studio 5000 for this, but we can write it when it comes to validating the system and changing controller types, downloading, running, writing commands or reading commands, and also being able to kind of save, import, even change the remote switch to remote run if we wanted to. So this is something that will be coming out. As of right now, we have it as Q4. So again, looking at probably closer to automation fair timeframe for the end of this year. But this, once we get more information on this, we will send this out. In the past, we have had like the command line interface tool to be able to do some partial import and export. This is going to be kind of a similar vein to this, again, for being able to kind of use external tools to be able to automate some of this. So, this is the caveat slide. Anyone running Windows 10 on a 32-bit system or anybody running Windows 7, again, this will not install. So version 34 will not install on a 32-bit running system for Windows 10 or anything running Windows 7. So just have that in your kind of knowledge base when you're looking at where you're going to install this. This is something as a disclaimer that is part of the download and also the README notes on the installation side of it. So just be aware of that. And that's it. Any questions either online or you guys before we swap? Christian?
Luis. So let's talk about cloud for a while. But before I do that, there was one piece of information around the DCOM hardening patch that I forgot to mention. If you look at the, or if you think about the patches that that Rockwell is releasing on that page, we had listed all the versions of software. So just so you know, not every version of software is going to be patched. So Rockwell decided software versions going back about 5 or 6 years, those are all going to be patched, but very old versions of View SE or Lynx Classic, etc., are not going to be patched. So you have to make sure that you check the version of software you're running and make sure there's a patch available for that. But for example, View SE, I think version 8 and higher will be patched. So that goes back 6 or 7 years. FactoryTalk Lynx Classic version 4 and higher will be patched, but the old version 2 and all that stuff isn't going to be patched. So so you'll have to make sure you're running at least semi-new software going forward, which is a good idea to do anyway. But anyway, I just wanted to make sure to get that out there. And all that is documented on the knowledge base. So let's talk about cloud for a minute. So anyone wondering when Rockwell was going to start releasing software in the cloud, it's already happened. We're already in that, we've already entered that phase. So, and anybody that went to the automation fair in Houston last year may have seen this, because I think it was there. But Rockwell has began the cloud world with something they call FactoryTalk Hub, which is built in the Microsoft Azure cloud. This slide kind of shows the overall picture of where Rockwell is headed. All of this isn't fully active yet, but this is the idea. So the FactoryTalk Hub is kind of the product suite. And then we have Design Hub, which falls in the design software. So that would be a studio, so today, et cetera. So there is plans for that. We'll talk about that. And the operations is more like real-time operations, and maintenance is like asset management. We're not really going to talk about that today. We just wanted to introduce what's going on in the Design Hub. So we can go ahead and go forward to the next slide. So the Design Hub, the beginnings of that is now released. A couple of main features that you can do today. So you can do backup and restores today through the FactoryTalk Vault or Vault. I'm sorry, I don't have all the marketing terms are still kind of new to me, but you can archive your files in one place, and that's multiple versions, group by project, et cetera. So that's one thing you can do. The other thing, the other main piece of this is having the Design Hub in the cloud streamlines the software revisions that you may have to be managing. So today on a traditional Studio 5000 system, if you're supporting multiple revisions of controllers, wherever that is, you've got to have multiple softwares installed. And so the idea behind the Design Hub in the cloud, not only can you store everything in the cloud, but you can move between revisions easier. So you don't have to go and install all the revisions on your local drive. All the revisions are already on the hub. So you can move, you could upgrade your project at the hub level and the cloud level without having to manage your laptop with all these different software versions. So I think that's probably one of the better features right out of the gate that the FactoryTalk Design Hub supports. So this is the kind of the file storage side of it. So Rockwell is calling that the FactoryTalk Vault. So so inside of the hub, each user will have a private space. So this is obviously not a public thing. You've got security to log into this hub to get access to your files. So the project files are archived by major revision, but like I said, you can then easily move. Like if you had a project on version 24 and wanted to move to 30, it's pretty much a point and click in the hub, and now that project is available on version 30 and 24. And again, you can, because everything is stored in the cloud, all these would be available anywhere. This does not replace Asset Center. This is not a full feature disaster recovery. This is just basically a simple file management system. So don't think that's a replacement. So the other thing, it's a little bit easier to upgrade projects here. So all the different file formats are supported. The L5K, the L5X, those are supported. One kind of neat feature that the migration allows in the cloud is to do sort of bulk migration. So you could actually put multiple files together and then do a simultaneous migration. So that's what this slide depicts. So in the traditional non-cloud environment, you had kind of had to pick one file at a time, one project at a time, and do the conversions to the ACD files. In the FactoryTalk Hub, Design Hub, you can kind of, the concept is similar to Control Flash Plus, where you can flash multiple devices at once. Now here you can migrate multiple projects at once, so that gains some efficiencies in the cloud and the system. So I think this is probably one of the main benefits of using a cloud type system.
Same thing that we have for modernization efforts. It's not optimizing any of the code, so customers are able to kind of use this as an ability of being able to kind of modernize and move to the latest and greatest, but it doesn't touch the code as far as any type of optimization. So that's where system integrators or Rockwell still has some ability of being able to kind of do some updates, especially if you're looking at modernization efforts from a standard system to maybe something more closer to like a Plant PX DCS type system with the updates in the library. But it is great when it comes to being able to kind of have those files readily available in a secure spot, and also being able to do that bulk code side of it.
So if you do choose to use the Design Hub, there are some additional analysis tools that are based in the cloud. So you can, just because it's in the cloud and Rockwell has turned some of these on, you easily look at how many rungs are in your, or rungs of ladder logic or lines of structured text you have. Some other things as well that are listed here. Yeah, I think if you're bragging is how few lines you need to do certain tasks, that's what I would shoot for. But instead of saying I've got 400 rungs of code in my.
No, I had an engineer buddy who was proud of how many it would take him.
Yeah,
that's
so
something to be proud of.
Anyway, so that's available. Something that wouldn't be right away available in a normal system. So go ahead, Brian. So the next question is, well, how do I get access to this? So this is sort of the good news here is if you have a Tech Connect with Studio 5000, then you have authorization to start using this, to start playing with it. So that's most of end users, and that's certainly anybody with a toolkit. So this is something that's available. Rockwell turned it on last year, and so at a minimum, I think the Vault is a nice tool to store.
And one of the
projects in the cloud.
slides, if you guys saw it, said that there's future updates that are planning. Rockwell is still taking feedback on it. So if you guys are able to
Mhm.
use it, see things that would be beneficial long-term, we can always send that back and see what we can get implemented for future releases.
So this Tech Connect support agreement, yeah, I know my company has. it.
Yeah.
How is this called? One for that Tech Connect support, or do I have to create my own user login for this design hub? And reference this Tech Connect number, and I have my own group of files that I don't have to see my colleagues' 800
Yeah.
projects.
Yeah, no, that's a good point. I think it's the intention is for individuals to have their own view and their own storage. I don't know
Yeah.
if there's a limit to the number
Yeah,
of users. That's a good question. I think we may have to dig into that a little bit.
Yeah,
and
because
get back to
there
you.
is a hierarchy. What they ended up doing with, or the route that they wanted to go with the My Rockwell portal is everyone in your company would have its own individual account as far as you being able to be yourself. But there is a kind of owner to the account, and you can set up a hierarchy as far as where the files go. We'll have to go in and figure out, especially any files that you put, do you have to share or do you have to allow someone to have access? That piece we'll need to kind of confirm. But the idea is every individual user with your setup, the same way that you go in and set up your knowledge base as yourself, even though you're using that one code, is the same idea for the My Rockwell portal.
Is there an ability that we as a systems integrator are working on multiple points, rather than us use their clients and log in and use our
That was the plan. I'll have to find out as far as when you're supporting customers, how that ties in, because I believe they might provide you access or you can add them, which is probably the better way of doing it. So we'll find out what the steps are from a system integrator point of view.
Yes, that the majority of the customers aren't so sophisticated, so they don't have the access.
Right.
But they probably have an account, but they don't use it.
Right.
So we can help them get set up to use.
Correct.
it as an SI.
Yeah, so we'll have a follow-up with that understanding a little bit more on how we would tie in with, if you're helping support your customers, what do we need to provide you to make sure that you can do that?
That's off the ground with the service.
Oh, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, for sure.
And that's the reason why we're not promoting it as a replacement of Asset Center, where Asset Center would still be a server-based system that has all of the revisions associated to that control system. This is basically just a file repository, the same way that we would treat like Microsoft OneDrive, where it just has a file in the cloud system that's secure where we can download. This is going to be the same thing, but now tied to the Rockwell account.
We've had requests for this for years when people wanted to use Asset Center for this function. So they would almost roll their own Asset Center and keep it at their office.
Mhm.
File like they check out and stuff. But it was kind of shoving a square peg in a round hole, right? So this is to actually do that function of project management for projects. They're going to add to this as you go down. Stuff like they're trying to figure out like GitHub integration and stuff like that too, right? So you can have Git libraries using what more traditional coders are used to, right? So this is to address a lot of what a traditional coder today sees when they come out of college, right? And where the world is going to software, to be able to have more cloud-based tools like this. It won't be the thing you use day-to-day sitting in the plant or at a facility, but
Traditional college graduate coder doesn't know that things go boom.
right. So but this is just to, be able to define libraries, be able to share with your colleagues, to define your storage, right? So that's where this is kind of going.
Okay, anything else? I guess. So final topic today is FactoryTalk Logix Echo. So let's jump into that. So Echo is kind of the next generation of emulation software that supports the new 5580, the L8 controllers. So L8s have been out for a while. I think this was released last year. So this is kind of the final software so now we've got this, and Redundancy has really made the L8s kind of a full featured set now of controllers. So with the Echo, can review what an emulator does. So you can test your control code in a safe environment. So with Echo now you can build an Echo chassis with up to 17 controllers. So I think that's a little bit more than emulator, at least as much. There's a couple of differences now. So the controller project can remain as is, and I've got a slide or two on that. So you can use the same controller project without any modifications with Echo versus Logix Emulate. You had to change the controller, and it had to be an Emulate controller inside Studio. Echo works a little differently, so you can actually connect to it by leaving the same controller that's configured in the ACD file. And so we'll talk about that a little bit. Oh, can you go back? I don't think I've told you. So unlike Redundancy, the front port of the Ethernet controller can be used in Emulate right out of the bat, which supports fully produce, consume, and messages between the emulated controllers. And in order to fully test HMIs, you can communicate via class 3 messages to HMIs and to other softwares through this. So you can do a full HMI test as well. There is also a software SDK available where you can do other things. So go ahead. So this is kind of what it looks like. The access, so in order to connect to this, if you look at I think that's FactoryTalk links, you can actually browse for it as it looks like a real controller in links. So you're browsing through the IP address and you can see the emulated controller there. So that's a little bit different than Logix Emulate, fully supported in FactoryTalk links. Go ahead. So this is a kind of a graphical representation. So inside of Studio 5000, whether you're communicating directly to an Echo controller or a physical controller, that Studio 5000 project has the same configuration in it. So what you have to do in your path of your Studio 5000 is just connect to that IP address that the Echo that's configured in the Echo, and then you're communicating directly to that. So therefore that probably helps certain regulated industries where if you can probably do some more testing without having to change the configuration, which would be a problem in some of the regulated industries. But it makes it a little bit better. Go ahead. Yeah, so in an L7 emulate system, you had to go into your project file and yeah, so you had to select an emulate controller type in the ACD file. Okay.
I seem to remember having to change the compact logic.
So yeah, so that actually is this slide exactly here. So these are the controllers that are fully supported today in Logix Echo. So you've got, it's all your 5580 L8s. The compact Logix will be fully supported in a future release. It isn't today. That's why you had to change it. So right, just the high performance compacts, the 5380s. And I think
compact Logix and to an extent, but it was really meant around the Logix system. You had to still change change the code. And then what would happen on the ControlLogix side of it, it was changed the structure because it was looking at more of a chassis-based system. What they're doing here is the first initial release will be the 5580, so it's still ControlLogix heavy. There'll be the L8s and also the process controller L8 variants are also part of this, so you can do both. The ControlLogix and the 5380, while you can put it to your point, you'll have to change the controller at that side of it because that one's not emulated yet. But Echo will have an update later on. They're going to address both GuardLogix and ControlLogix as an available option.
Yeah.
So they're getting there, but right now this initial one is going to be heavy on the L8 and the L8 process controller variant.
Yeah.
You end up getting Echo for
The newer controllers.
for testing logic and functional levels.
Correct. We would look at this to be able to test your code, sandboxing, being able to test HMI systems. And then if you wanted to, it has those SDKs where we can now tie it into like a simulation package. So in the existing, let's say the L7 side of it for the 5570, if we were using Logix Emulate, there was a Logix Emulate OTS. So it had a driver attached to it. So you can put it with a simulation package for operator training. This now allows the exact same thing. The difference is it's only going to be specific to 5580 controllers and above, where Logix Emulate
now,
was
yeah.
for the L7s and below.
Yeah, so look for new releases to support more of the controllers and also version 33 or later is required for this. This is a new product. So,
Everything's going to move to the Echo platform.
well, so the 5380 compact is what we call the high performance controllers. Those have the same technology behind them. They're in the compact form. The 1769 compact are the older style controllers. Those are not going to go to Echo.
Yeah, so think of it as a
It's-
line in the sand. Anything that we
Yeah.
would consider the new high performance generation, so the 5380 and the 5580, that'll all move to Echo. Everything that was existing will stay where it was. So those will not be brought into Echo as of right now. It'll just be for the new. Yeah.
My mind about,
Yeah.
you know, brownfield versus.
Correct.
Right.
Change these.
Yeah.
Simulators. Yeah, we're going after a simulator for brownfield facility.
Correct.
Mhm.
It's just really helpful when you're migrating, right? Because they might have had an L6 or an L7, and now you want to move to an L8, which you can't show. You know, it works because it's the same technology, but that might not be so sure. So you can emulate this and show it to them.
To the one.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And show it works. Because you can hook up your View application to this.
Right.
So if you could look at this, emulate the controller, and you've done a pure software approved valve now. It didn't have to touch a piece of hardware.
Mhm. Okay, so just to jump on that point. So the screenshot here shows you how you can simulate control code and HMI integration or interaction simultaneously. So as long on the HMI side, as long as the Logix Echo controller has the same IP address as the HMI shortcut communications, then it'll just talk directly to Logix Echo, and then you could prove your HMI as well as your controller code there. So
as an example, Rockwell has a collection of what they call on-course Azure-based online demos that we have access to for customers. Anything that's running a Plant PX 5.0 system, in most cases, will be running Echo in the background. So we can spin up a quick image that's running off just a Windows server OS, and it has Logix Echo in the background running the process controller. So all of the HMI is currently running, and it's all a kind of enclosed system. That's in general really what we're using Echo for. But once you start talking to your customers and you start having to see, okay, do I need to see about doing a brownfield or a greenfield type system? Do they need a sandbox type solution when we're talking about doing all of these updates on servers to be able to make sure that any updates that we do at the controller side of it doesn't get affected? Or if they do want to do a full, what they call a digital twin type simulation package, this is another thing that we could look at, where we can move the dollars from buying physical hardware, which we may or may not be able to receive at the moment, and moving towards a software-based solution where we can kind of show the same functionality, wait for the controllers to show up, but we're working on the code now without having to create variants of that code the way that we used to with emulate, where we actually had to change the controllers or maybe some of the functional pieces. So just a couple of things to think about when we're looking at this.
We were wondering if anybody would bring that up.
Out. Yes, it. So for anybody online, we just kicked out the person that said SoftLogix.
No.
Yeah, it does have some tie-ins. The differentiation point is essentially this does not tie into IO. It's not a full running system. It is meant for emulation, but it does hopefully starts moving in that direction in the future, but not any plan as of right now.
Mhm.
And that's where the caveat slide that David's about to cover.
Right, so, yeah, so think about it as an emulator. What you can do, so it'll run the logic that's written in the controller. It's not a simulator. It's not gonna build any extra code. It's just gonna run the code you have. So you can go online with it. You can connect to an HMI. We saw, you can produce and consume tags from other emulators. So you can have controller to controller communication. You can use message instructions the same way. And then with the motion stuff, this is Masterson's expertise, but you can do virtual access axes of motion. But you are a little bit limited on that. You can download, so you can download a project for redundancy, but it's not going to behave as a redundant system. So what you can't do, it's not going to connect to any physical IO. This is purely a software emulation. It's the motion axes are not going to connect to real drives or whatever, what have you.
Yeah,
It's
this
not
was
gonna,
always our workaround with the Logix emulate for the L7 side of it is
Yeah.
even though you could do redundancy and you're testing the code from a redundant controller, it did not emulate redundancy. So
Right.
basically all you were doing is putting a redundant controller in almost like a simplex mode, tying it into the HMI and testing it to make sure that all your logics work. But it didn't do anything when it comes to testing your redundancy check. Same
Yeah.
thing here and the Logix Echo side of it, we're using the 5580, but even though you might be trying to run a redundant system, all you're basically doing is testing that one controller in a simplex mode because we can't have the two running in tandem.
Is this something that we, the SI would be able to get the licenses for?
so
And not necessarily, I don't see-
Is that the next
So-
So.
So yeah, so to answer your question directly, yes, but it does require some. No, you can. The answer is yes, but it costs, it is an extra cost.
It's not part of your tool.
It's not, yeah, it's not part of the toolkit, which is different from Logix 5000 emulate. And so as of today, this is a subscription-based software. So you can buy it for a yearly subscription. And that's the option.
And we don't know why David made that decision. But
Yeah.
David decided to do it.
That's for the
Thanks.
motion comment, just so you know that.
Yeah, he's getting me back for the motion guy gets sensitive sometimes. So anyway, this is just sort of another look at it.
But just
Yeah.
the price of it is, was it 1,200 a year per controller or something like that?
Yeah, so we're looking at it, they call it node based, but essentially you'd be doing a yearly subscription for one controller. You can do up to 17 on there. And if you're a system integrator, the same way you think about it is you're not licensing for what you're doing with the controller, just the fact that you have a single instance. So if you use that for multiple projects, it's a don't care. You just have it as a single instance that you can run either on a workstation or on a server, and you can kind of rip through different emulation. Right.
Mhm.
You can run it in multiple offices, one instance at a time.
Yeah, well, that's right. So we drop
Already
it,
experimented.
we drop it in our internet.
Yeah, so if somebody picks it up, starts using the license, and then drops in somebody else, Yeah.
So you guys want to mess with temporary activation of the playground, let us know.
And to your
Yeah.
point, if you want to change the structure so that it's not a system integrator and force it to the end user, you could also do that as well. So that you can kind of look to see, okay, does it make more sense from a development side of it and just using it as an in-house development tool? Or do I want to push that into the end user side of it and actually give them something where there's a sandbox and you can kind of transfer the ownership to them is something that they're owning.
Exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah.
You know, we could use it internally and then prove it out to the customer.
Exactly.
He's gonna say, hey, I want that too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But, you know, up front, he's gonna say, I don't want it. You know,
Right.
your responsibility delivers a complete system that functions.
Right.
And we're
But-
gonna operate the plan on that.
Mhm.
But, you know,
Right.
their job is not to mess about with PLCs.
Right.
Their job is to make stuff
Right.
right up back in the plan. Okay,
So I think that's it.
sorry.
Yeah.
that's your question.
No.
That's good. Yeah.
On Echo, while playing with it, there uses class 3 testing.
Mhm.
CFD testing, right, get data
Mhm.
to the same module defined tags that were created when you added an item module.
Any questions?
Mhm.
Right? So
Yeah.
you write to them with Echo,
Yeah.
they somehow get overwritten by the installation engine. Unless you go and put it in a different module
Hey, David.
Okay.
that behaves differently than what you have.
Okay. Okay. So, so
So there are some changes that you have to make.
you have to make.
Hey, David.
Okay.
Right to those same item points.
So
Okay,
really quick for the
okay.
people that are still online, I know we've gone long a little bit, so we'll go ahead and end this. But thank you for joining. And if you guys have any questions, just reach out to us or you'll be able to watch this after the fact. So thank you for joining.